city. So what we did have is the events. How can we enhance those events? So many of our people from the Muskegon Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce, my old agency, downtown Muskegon now, before I became a city employee with the DDA, and Visit Muskegon, we're seeing as we go out along, people taking drinks out into main streets. We see that in New Orleans, in places like the Las Vegas Strip, Atlantic City, but also in places like Hood River, or Oregon, Butte, Montana, the Power and Light District of Kansas City, Savannah, Georgia's historic district, Tampa and San Antonio river walks, and in Mobile, Alabama. And so the conversation was amongst community stakeholders and downtown stakeholders, how can we do that here? We also looked to the south of us and saw that in Ohio in 2015, they had something that they began called Designated Outdoor Refreshment Areas, or DORAs. And we really started to take a look at those. How were they put together? Who's using them? How they're using them? And does that have any implications or lessons for Michigan and Michigan communities? They were established by cities in Ohio, from Columbus to Toledo to Sandusky to Dublin. There are now 56 communities across the state of Ohio that have DORAs in which you can take, as I like to describe this whole social district DORA thing, is walking a beer down Main Street. And that's really where we got going at. So to create that, we need to get similar legislation here in the state of Michigan. In 2017 era, there were some discussions of this, the chamber coalitions of Grand Rapids and Muskegon. We're looking at it. My organization, that I already mentioned, Michigan Downtown Association, we're looking at it, as was, and it was not an arena district in terms of a formal, but there was obviously with the Fox, with the Little Caesars Arena, with Ford Field, and with Comerica Park, there was an opportunity there that the Illiches had looked at to have a similar type of a DORA, or as we become known as a social district in that part of the redevelopment of Detroit. But the Michigan enabling law that we had put out was left languishing. There really wasn't that support behind it. The Michigan Liquor Control Commission had some objections to the way that the law was crafted. The Attorney General's office became involved. We got bogged down over issues such as liability and licensing and regulation, and it really wasn't going anywhere until we were until the impacts of COVID really hit our communities, and everything changed. We all know that in March of 2020, and so did the concept of allowing cities and towns in townships in Michigan to have something called as the social district. So in July 2020, Public Act 124 was signed by Governor Whitmer. It passed the Michigan House on its final passage at 107-0, and in the Michigan Senate as 36-1. So obviously something major had changed. Our downtowns were shut down as it relates to its food and beverage operations that had the offices all close up as we all went home. The hotels did not have travelers, either business or tourists. And there was a need at that time to give a kickstart. And we did lots of things such as close down roads, put up outdoor eating areas, extended the service areas very quickly of bars and restaurants in terms of where they could serve alcohol. And then by midsummer, each community had the ability under enabling legislation. It doesn't say that everyone has this. You have to apply for it. You have to go through the steps that were set out in Public Act 124 to create a social district. We'll get into that here in a second, but that became an option. And as you'll see over the course of the last year, many people have taken that option. To establish a social district, you have a district, and then you also have common areas within that district. And you have to have a plan for that, and that has to be acceptable to the MLCC. So liquor control does not have to approve, but they have to acknowledge it and put it on record. But that comes from the local governments. This is grassroots up. It's not state government top down. So this is coming from the communities as they see a need for this, or if it fits or does not fit, you don't go ahead with anything. Your specific community, its culture, its needs, and the settings of the various downtowns, or some of them could be in malls. It doesn't always have to be a downtown. There could be different places, but you at least have to have 2 licensed establishments and an area that would become a common area. Mainly it's either parks, it's parklets, it's promenades, and it's the sidewalks, which is really what the common areas are, where one can then take drinks outside of the bar or restaurant. Alcohol can be possessed and consumed in those areas. Public Act 124 sunsets after 5 years. We are now into year 2 of that process. The requirements of the social district is that the boundaries must be marked. If you see a beer tent, the traditional fashion, it had to be fenced off. And so it could be a whole public park, which we do for parties in the park. We actually put a fence around an entire city block and then take that down because we don't want that part fenced for the rest of the week. So parties in the park has become very creative and creating those kinds of spaces, but this is not needed. We have used what you see here is a wind sign. Some people have used just street signs. Some people have put markings on sidewalks. It says it must be marked to know when you are entering or exiting a social district. And the back side of the sign that you see right here says no alcohol beyond this point. So you've got the rules going in. You've got a barrier that says no alcohol beyond this point. And it is very loosey-goosey. It is in terms of enforcement. There is not a person standing there checking to see that you don't have a drink past that sign. And there is the enforcement of it is really the understanding and the ethos of the folks who are participating as customers. And it's really self-policed in that way. We'll get into a little bit of the enforcement here in a second, or making sure that the standards of the social district are met. You cannot consume in the street. So you can't stand out in the street and drink. However, if the street is closed by the municipality that has put the social district together, so when we close down a street for art fair, or we close it down for our biking event, the street then becomes part of the common area. You can cross the street, but you cannot drink in it according to state law. The required plans that the state looks for have security and sanitation provisions in them. The law is very specific that we need to have a uniform single-use social district cup. Can't be larger than 16 ounces, and that can't be glass. You can, I mean, I've had some conversations with some people that were going into winter. They want to have a hot toddy type of a drink. And can you have a cup that is insulated? Certainly, as long as it's not glass. And most of them are going to be your typical 16-ounce plastic cups. All alcoholic drinks purchased in the social district can be taken, consumed in common areas. Only those alcoholic beverages in those cups are allowed. Cups need to be marked, identified with social district and the establishment from which it was purchased, because you cannot take that into any other establishment. So you need to know that if it comes from Unruly Brewing, it's not going into the 18th Amendment and vice versa. And so that's 2 demarcations that need to be on those cups for enforcement purposes. And patrons cannot have open receptacle alcohol or consume alcohol not purchased in a social district cup. Does it happen? Certainly does. And news to everybody, it was happening well before the social district were created in the state. Participating establishments need to have a MLCC permit with the blessing of the municipality. So it's a 2-step process. And this is just an add-on to their liquor license that they get from the LCC. Social districts of individual establishment permits or social districts themselves can be eliminated. If they become a safety or a public nuisance, the municipality can remove them or remove the entire district after a public hearing, and that is in the Public Act 124. What have we done in downtown Muskegon? It's like go big or go home. And our community wanted to have an extensive, as has Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids actually has 3 social districts, about the size of each one of ours in various aspects of their downtown. Ours is Western Avenue. It's the main street. Clay Avenue is the secondary main street to the south, parallel to Western. And about 12 blocks are in our area. It goes from locally here from 8th Street all the way down to Pine Street. And then within that district, there were originally 23 licensed establishments. And over the course of the year, we've had about 18 participating. We opened this up the 3rd weekend in September of 2020. We were not the first. I think Grand Rapids, Petoskey, Northville, all having them probably before we did, but we were one of the first in the state to have one up and operating. It has been operating 365 days a year from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. ever since. Our specific philosophy, and this comes from Jeff Lewis, our police chief and public safety director at the City of Muskegon, is that we will have a social district that is uniform so that people coming on a Tuesday night in June will have nothing different than having it a Saturday night in November. It'll be from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's when you can be having a social district drink cup and consume it within the common area. After 11 o'clock or before 11 a.m., back into the establishments. So we are not looking to have this a year round or all day long. Obviously, it's a good chunk of the day. It's 12 hours, but we do not want to have it past 11 o'clock. In the old days, that was about the time that we had our major downtown events break up and people would go home or go back to establishments when we were down at festivals like Summer Celebration. So last call, and all at those events were like 9:30 or so, 10 o'clock you're done, and 11 o'clock you're basically cleared out. That is what we hope to have here and has really worked within our social district. We've used these about 50 wind signs along the 12 blocks to show where you can and cannot have your common area drink. We have had event security guards walk the district Friday and Saturday evenings in summer, not for heavy enforcement, but for education and reminders and customer service, quite truthfully, and having direct links to 911 and the police department if we need to have it. That security offer, professional security out of Grand Rapids, also has provided security for some of the individual establishments, and also has for our events such as Taste of Muskegon and the other events that we have had in our downtown. Here's what it looks like. Large area, and if you can see my cursor, mid part of town is 3rd Street is right there. Our farmers markets down here. The city actually has 2 liquor licenses. We have one at our arena, which is the Mercy Health Arena. And then we also have one at our farmers market for special events or for the sale of alcohol or tasting of alcohol as it relates to any of the wineries that might be coming into our farmers market, which I will boast to say outside is the largest farmers market outside the Eastern Market in Detroit, and brings about 10,000 people into our downtown on any given Saturday in the spring, summer, and early fall. So it has been incorporated into our social district. We have had, as I said, special event nonprofit beer tents has been a very major economic driver. It's been a very major fundraiser for our nonprofits in this town. Rebel Road is a event raising funds for the Child Abuse Council of Muskegon County, and very much a number of nonprofits have adopted one of the 10 parties in the park, and all profits from those parties in the park on Fridays in Hackley Park go to a nonprofit. So this has been very much the culture here in Muskegon, and those beer tents closed down a social district if they were within the district footprint. So for the time that a beer tent is licensed for operation, the social district must shut down. As I told you, Chief Lewis does not want to start it up and close it down. So we could have a situation where on Wednesday, you can take an alcoholic beverage from, say, Mike's Inn down to Napolte's on the other side of our district and have nothing problem. That's on a Wednesday. Come Thursday of bike time, the next night, you can't do any of that. Taking care of all those signs, taking care of that enforcement would be a nightmare. To start it up, close it down. So it's become a very much a problem for the nonprofits. They have had to find a footprint outside of the social district. And if you took a look at that map that we had, Hackley Park sits right in here. So it is outside of our social district. So we have had some of those go forward in the Hackley Park and continue to be part of our downtown scene for those events, but not inside the social district. We are not going to shut a social district down for those licenses. We started something else, social sandbags. As I said, we had 23 acres 20 years ago with 5 buildings. We've come a long way, but there's still a gap in our smile. We have some missing teeth. One of those is, as you can see behind this picture on the left, there's a building under construction. That tooth has been replaced in our smile, but a kitty corner at 2nd in Western. We have a empty lot, and between the city, it's DDA and BID, Business Improvement District, and the Muskegon Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce, and the community that is at 2nd and 3rd, those establishments, we have created what the marketers down here at the Chamber of Commerce is called the social sandbags. We got lots of sand. We place it around town at various times because we have to take it off the beaches. It blows up and covers our roadways and our parks, parking lots. So the city DPW put the sand at this lot. Actually, this lot had been used as a volleyball area, sand volleyball, before we created sand volleyball behind something called Western Market, which is a bunch of pop-up shops a block to the east of here. But the fine folks at Burl and Sprigg and those at Unruly and at 18th Amendment that are around this centered area called the Social Sandbox, we just wanted a social district gathering place. And this is what we created temporary. There will be a building on this lot quite soon. It sits next to a 6-story building, 7-story building that was built mixed use 3 years ago called Lakeview Lofts. And so in the heart of our downtown, we have this gathering spot. We've had some music on weekends, but it's a place where you can go and have a sandwich for lunch or come in the evening and listen to me some music on a small stage and then enjoy your beverage from the social district. We weren't done. I have a very aggressive city manager, Frank Peterson, and when the fine folks at the Lakeside District, which is a small commercial strip on Lakeshore Drive between the downtown and our beach at Pierre Marquette Park, came and asked for a social district. Sure, I got to go out and create that one. So we created in Labor Day, I think we opened that up just with 2 establishments. There was potential of 3 more, but they have not yet joined. So with Wonderland and with the Marine Tap Room, we have created in September 2021 with the same rules, regulations as we have had in other places within the social district in downtown. We've created the Lakeside Social District. It really right now allows the haircutting place next to Wonderland to go have drinks ordered in and brought down to them. And there's a little parklet next to the pizza shop down the way. So it's about 2 or 3 blocks that are actually being used, but the area is a little bit larger than that. So most all of the activity is right here down on this end. This is a marina that is not yet wanted to have social district drinks taken into it, even though you can still go and get a to-go cocktail, which is another part of the laws that were changed in July of 2020. We can now go get with a licensed establishment a to-go cup that is sealed and stickered and with the top on it and all, and that can be taken out and consumed in a legal area, not within the local social district, but can be taken home or in this case onto your boat within that marina, Great Lakes Marina and Lakeside. So right now it's starting as a small area, but this is a growing and developing area that I'm sure the social district will become a more significant factor going forward. So what's the results? What has it been like here in Muskegon with our social district? Let me suggest that we are happy with it. There will be some tweaks that we'll be making. We'll be meeting with the end of the month with the establishments and going before City Commission in December and really revamping a little bit of what we do, mainly on the financial side, to continue with our social district for us year 2.5. Our anniversary was back in August or in September, but we'll create a new set of provisions, especially as to how we relate to our stickers and our cups and the costs thereof, because the establishments buy those stickers from the city charges for those and then pays for our common costs that we have in enforcement, the signs, and any of the special events that we have downtown. We estimate that we sold 123,000 social district drinks the first year, and that 62% of those social district drinks were at our special events. So we will be using the funds raised off of those stickers to help pay for the $60,000 that we spent in fireworks just on one night in 20 minutes, and in other aspects of our downtown as it relates to those special events for DPW, for security, police, for trash removal. All of those elements the social district will contribute to. Social district will also start talking about putting their own entertainment in on common stages within the common areas, and then also look at probably marketing. They could put in street aspects. We need some fire features that we do not have that you see in places even like Spring Lake and Holland in these parts, so that we can broaden our shoulder seasons in terms of having people feel comfortable being out in the elements as it starts to get colder, both in the fall and in the spring. So all those elements are out there. The city is not making money on our social district. Any monies that we have will be going back into supporting what's going on within the district. We had no major public safety incidents. I have never had, over the course of the last year, several months, the police chief or any of command officers called me and said, problem at X, Y, or Z, we need to deal with it. There's been a couple of issues within individual bars on the closing night of bike time, but there was that prior to having a social district. So have we had regulatory issues? Certainly. But like I said, we were walking down Main Street with beers in concealed cups or containers long before the social district law came into effect. And we had those at parties in the park. People brought their own alcohol in there, snuck it in. People will do what people will do, but for the most part, it's not been perfect, but we feel very good that the regulations have been followed. And when people were reminded of it, they were pretty courteous in terms of dealing with it. Our community, downtown stakeholders and establishments found it to be successful, and we are moving forward now with year 2 as it relates to some changes that we go before the city commission. We think we've created an excitement, it's a vibe and a growing reputation for downtown Muskegon as a place to be. Is a social district all part of that? No, it's the hundreds of millions of dollars of investment that we've made since 2000 in our downtown in terms of both public and private and nonprofit contributions to the economic vitality and future of downtown Muskegon. In Michigan, I am sure of the people who are on this call that you probably have one of those 78 municipalities in your county. I believe of the counties, probably 30 or 40 of the 83 counties of the state of Michigan at least has one municipality in it. Of those 78 municipalities, some of them are active. Some of them are active like we are, 365 days a year. Some of them are active only in certain seasons. Each community has a way in which it's using the social district law to enhance its community. But that represents 515 establishments who have gotten the permit in the first year to provide social district drinks into their common areas. Like I said, each one is unique. It is enhancing our downtowns in the age of COVID. And how Grand Rapids uses it, Petoskey, Northville, and Muskegon. Each of us have our own reasons for being there and doing it, and leveraging our social district for the community's needs. Let me end, let you know that there are some changes possibly afoot, and it is found in House Bill 5090, and that has gone through the Regulatory Affairs Committee of the House and has been passed on to the House for their consideration, and then it would have to go over to the Senate. It modifies the Social District Law Act 124 in two major ways as I see it. First off, it eliminates the sunset. It will not force the communities and the state legislature to go back and have the social district law reignited after 5 years. And it will allow a nonprofit special event beer tent in a social district if they are separated. And that means that they would be separated first off by fencing and by security, so that a beer tent drink cannot go into the social district and a social district drink can't go into a beer tent. But if that beer tent is in the social district footprint, it does not shut the entire social district down for the duration of that special license. That has to be approved by according to this proposed law, by the municipality, as all social district or all special event beer licenses are, and then sent on to the state MLCC for its approval before that special event license is allowed to operate within a social district. The bill, I said, awaits House action and then on to the Senate. It has garnered the support of both the Detroit and Grand Rapids Chamber coalitions and along with the Michigan Downtowns Association. I am not sure exactly where the MLCC is on this particular law. When Act 124 was first initiated and proposed, the MLCC was neutral on the bill. And in this case, I am not sure what their comments would be on it. I think we're far enough along that I've seen any reporting on that yet. But we would hope to have this done sometime by the end of the year or early 2022 so that we can do some planning for next summer. With that, I've talked enough. Hopefully I've given you some insights from my community standpoint, from my perspective of being around this law prior to its passage and trying to implement it in a community like Muskegon. And Jill, here's the Chamber of Commerce photo that I have promised you. This is the Port City Princess, is now be called the Aqua Star, and it's a sunset cruise, dinner cruise boat. Used to be a old Mackinac Island ferry. I think it was a Shepler ferry. It was brought down here in 1988 or so, and has been running ever since as a little cruise ship for sunset cruises and in all. And that is the Muskegon Channel, and that is why Muskegon is where it's at, because that's Muskegon Lake in the back. This boat is cruising out into Lake Michigan, and this is our port. We call it Michigan's destination port because it has all kinds of things. And that lake behind it is 3.5 miles wide, 5 miles long, And at the end of it is downtown Muskegon on the south east corner of the lake. And that lake is fed by Muskegon River. And you could put 2 ferries of the largest size, which are 1,000-footers that never go out of the Great Lakes and were built here because they can't get through the Welland Canal. Put them side by side. You wouldn't want to do that, but that is a natural port. We do not have to dredge that channel, and that channel is usually about 25-foot depths. So we can take any ship in the Great Lakes in here at any time, and it's really the be all and end all as to why Muskegon is where it's at geography wise. So with that, Lisa, Jeff, Jill, you tell me where you want me to go.
Thank you for that last photo. Isn't that beautiful? Come to our beaches and spend money in our downtown, please. There's my plug, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the information, Dave. I mean, it's a great overview of like social districts, how the Public Act came to be, and how Muskegon is using them. I'm assuming most of the municipalities. I have one more thing I can show you too. I did look up where you talked about the social districts that have been established so far in Michigan. I did find a little handout so people on the webinar can see exactly where the current ones are as of November 3rd. So I will pop this.
You'll put that up for me. I've got a copy of it sitting on my desk here, but yeah, there it is. Coming. Yep, that's it.
Yep. So there's are the for those of you through Allegan, through Newaygo County, and then also
the second page.
Wow.
so Oakland, you see Oakland County, extensive use, Washtenaw, Ottawa, and Wayne County. Those are where they are at in the state of Michigan.
Some communities, this is not an issue. I had a unanimous vote in Muskegon. Other communities, this is a major issue. And that just goes to the culture and the history and the political environment within, social environment within each community. And if it's not for you, the state's not forcing you to do anything, obviously.
Right.
Yep. And Jill, you work with the health department in Muskegon County. Have you seen any issues with the social district there in Muskegon?
No, not a one. Honest to God. The people that I've seen and the people that I know that use it, and myself, I can tell you that we're very respectful of it, extremely respectful of it. People know the rules. They know where they can and they can't go with alcohol. It was a little confusing at first. You know, you can't just walk down and walk into another establishment. And it takes a little bit of education, but people are really good about it. And they understand that this is a privilege. So no, we haven't seen any issues. I do have a question for Dave, if that's okay.
Go for it.
I wanted to ask about the marijuana provisioning centers. Is there anything written in the legislation about whether or not, what happens if downtown there's we have a provisioning center? Are they allowed in the social district, or?
There is no, that I know of, there is no issues that are conflicting within the social district law that has nothing to do about cannabis businesses.
Okay.
So we could have a cannabis business within the district. Now, what you can do, this is our interpretation, the interpretation of places like Petoskey and Rapids. And this comes from my city attorney, and I'm not sure if everyone at the state AG's office or at the MLCC agrees with this, but this is where we're running with it right now. You can take into a non-alcoholic business a social district drink if that business will allow you in. So if you've got a gift shop or a women's apparel shop and you wanted to allow a social district drink, if you are with the district, to go in there, we have provided signs that say yes or no. So I would guess a cannabis business right now would probably be the same.
Okay.
And so what do? You go in there, it's a retail store. I mean, the provision areas are retail stores. It's a legal business. It's a legal drug that is dispensed at those places, either in edible forms or in creams or in the leaf form. And I would guess that we do not have a cannabis business within our social district, but if there was so, I guess we would probably take it as any other retail establishment that has no alcohol in it. Now, if you are a party store, Boomtown Market, they sell packaged liquor and it goes out the door, beer and wine. You cannot take a social district drink into another liquor establishment, alcohol establishment, by their rules at state in terms of the license that those packaged liquor establishments have. There's a couple of those. There's a wine store. They sell wine at a cheese store. There used to be a wine tasting in one of our shops. Those are not allowed to have social district drinks in them. And if you're a shop owner and don't want the social district drink in, that is your prerogative, and they do not go in. That can go from, I tell them, you know, on Rebel Road weekend, you may not want it in your shop, but on even Tuesday, it actually enhances business. Go ahead for it. So that's how we are approaching it. That's especially how Petoskey has got it, because they are all about wanting to cruise the their shopping district, Gaslight district of Petoskey. All their art shops, all of their gift shops, all of their clothing stores, to be able to take those in and out if the shopkeeper wants it.
Great, thank you.
Might I just, that you just opened up a can of worms for me, Jill.
Of course.
If you understand the cannabis recreation law, there's 5 ways that you are involved in the business. One of those is events. And there are special licenses for events. We knew of Hash Bash in Ann Arbor for years, et cetera, et cetera. There are a couple events that have been happening on site, and we've got a proliferation of cannabis stores in Muskegon, city of, and they are put into a special district to enhance the building and the investment within that district along Laketon Avenue. There have been some events out there. We are going to start having them request events outside of their footprint. I'm not sure where that's going, but if not in 5 years, you can't walk a doobie down Main Street, I will be surprised. There are going to be cannabis districts. How they work with social districts, I don't know, but folks, it's coming. I don't see as that business matures, the cannabis business matures and becomes more integrated within our economic communities. I just see that happening. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I just feel that that's probably going to come quicker than alcohol did. It took us quite a while from when we started to have, let's say, since Prohibition, to have this particular law available in Michigan. I see between the time of when the state's voters approved recreational marijuana to when we have a cannabis zone or cannabis district of some sorts, is not going to be that long.
Okay, thanks for the heads up.
Just a prediction.
We've got a question for you, Dave, from Jordan. Did the citizens in those districts vote on allowing social districts, like anybody living there?
No, nope. The social district law allows the governing body, that would be the city commission, city council, or township board, village council of any municipality in the state of Michigan, to start the social district process through resolution and submission of certain documentation to the Liquor Control Commission. There are public hearings that are on it. It was discussed probably 3 times before my city commission before it was approved. There was no objections to any of those public meetings. I guess the only way the citizens would have a vote on that would be to have a referendum on the action of the specific municipality to have that overturned, and that could be put out there, or it could become a issue within a municipal governmental election process, in which this becomes the issue between the candidates. we just went through a fairly aggressive and hard-fought election here in the city of Muskegon. I will tell you that social districts did not come up once within the mayoral or city commission races, and no one has expressed opposition to it within my community from a public standpoint that way.
That was my next question, was how it played out in your election. So that's no candidates brought it up. No one, you get all these people that take these issues and wedge them, saying, hey, I'm for it, I'm against it, and that's what they base. But
I like to, in a joking way, say that we like to drink a little bit in Muskegon. Again, I go back to the lumber era, I go back to the industrial era, and it's just in our DNA. That's how we do it. I mean, it's from the Polish stock. Even though I'm Alexander, I'm half Polish. It's what I grew up in Jackson with, in terms of when we celebrate, there's usually alcohol around. And there are other Germans, and you just take a look at the other ethnics that came in the lumbering and industrial eras, the Italians that have made and forged this community. It's part of their social fabric, and it's continued in our community that is not as easily done in other communities that have different histories.
okay. And in terms of Jill, from like a health department prevention standpoint, I don't know, one of the issues that's raised I've heard is youth access at social districts. Have you seen any rises in youth rates of use or consumption?
Nothing that I know of. I can't imagine that it's any higher than anywhere else. You've got to get your boost somewhere. So all of our establishments down there are checked by liquor control, and the municipality. They all do a great job. They do. And from a health department perspective here, the one thing that we're most interested in is the harm reduction aspect of all that. I think if we preach abstinence, that'd be like futile. I don't think that would ever work. But the harm reduction thing, making sure people are safe while they're doing what they're doing. And that's really what we care about.
All right, a couple more questions. Have you seen any rise in impaired driving since the creation of social district?
Hey, Jeff, before we go there, I just wanted to make a quick comment about the marijuana establishments and the use of alcohol. So the provisioning center license, they're not allowed to sell, consume, or use or have the use of alcohol or tobacco products on the premises. So there are some legal things that are in place in regards to that. So you just want to make sure that you look up what type of establishment the marijuana is, and then if it allows consumption of alcohol or not. It sounds like for the most part, it doesn't.
That's a good information that I did not know. I know it from the alcohol standpoint, but yeah, that was their license that they have on the cannabis side. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and the impaired driving, I don't have any statistics on that whatsoever. I can't even answer that.
We were working in downtown Muskegon before social districts, and we're doing it in big public areas such as parks. Prior to that, with the special event licenses. So yes, we sold quite a few drinks into the common area, but it was estimated that that's probably only 15% of what the alcohol sold within those establishments. 23 establishments were over the course of that year. So, there could have been 700, 800,000 drinks sold within those establishments. So are we drinking any more because of it? I don't think so. But like Jill said, we haven't seen any statistics that would point us one way or the other.
Right. I can look at those further down the line if anybody is interested, but I'm not so sure the data is ready yet. But on the state's traffic fatality side, I can get some pretty detailed information. But I'm sure that that's at least a year out before we even have that info.
One other thing, another question is, from Deb Mitchell, how do social districts help with prevention of drinking? Do you have any problems? Have you had any problems with public drunkenness at all? I heard you say not really.
The only time that, and I'll admit, I was scared when we had thousands and thousands of people downtown in our social district for the final night of, it'd be the Saturday evening of Rebel Road / Bike Time. It felt somewhat out of control, but that was an out of control situation before we had social district.
Yeah.
And we sort of skate on the edge. We have not had major instances to our event, but it is like pouring every biker bar in Michigan into your downtown, and not every downtown would allow that or encourage that. But again, this is the culture of Muskegon, and it is, I believe, highly successful in terms of both the biking lifestyle and of the economics of the establishments in our downtown. So the public drunkenness, I have not seen on a given day outside of those couple of major events. There have not been. I think one of the things that we do see in those major events is that the trash cans are showing up with beer bottles, beer cans, or wine bottles that are obviously not part of the social district, but are probably have been consumed there. They just weren't taken to be placed in those receptacles. So that is an issue that we are looking at in terms of enforcement and of keeping the regulations of the social district as clean as possible in terms of people following those rules. So that is something that is being discussed going into the major events next year. But in terms of just general, right now, the social district will open in 45 minutes and you won't even know it when it happens. If there were 5 drinks going down the street today, I would be surprised. There may be 5 tonight that you could find out there. So it's not being used in a major way, but it's there if people want that opportunity.
All right, another question, John, did you want to ask your question?
Okay, my question has to do with follow-up studies at a certain periods of time. Are there any either statewide, maybe Lisa, you know that, or by your local district to identify any increase that may happen with alcohol-related problems, the drinking, driving, the alcohol abuse, et cetera, et cetera? Are there any follow-up studies being planned?
Not that I know of in Muskegon. Lisa, is there anything that's going on at the state that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if MLCC has anything planned. My gut tells me probably not, but there's nothing that I'm aware of at this point.
That's too bad, because that would be a real good tell on whether what you're seeing, Dave, is like it's all okay. We don't expect any increases in problems, or if there's families that are experiencing increased issues around the area. I think it would be I don't know, a wise thing to do for the health of the community.
Yeah, I certainly had that on my conversation for later on in this meeting. But that was definitely one of the things as we think about the assessment piece and as preventionists that we definitely want to make sure that we're tracking all of that data to see how it's making an impact.
I think there's other communities that we can look at too. There, like Dave mentioned way in the beginning of his presentation, this isn't new. This has been going on in a lot of places for quite a long time. So we can probably look to them for data as well.
Dave, this is Lisa. I have a question. You were talking about the cups having stickers. Are the stickers per establishment? Does each establishment have their own with their name on it?
Correct. So there are
Okay.
2 stickers by law, or there has to be 2 identifiers on each cup, each social district. Number 1, there has to be a common identifier for the social district. And then each either branded cup or stickered cup from the establishment, so that I know it's coming from Mike's Bar, or I know it's coming from 794 Kitchen and Bar. So that when it is out in the social district and there's a problem, I know where that problem can be traced back to. Number 2, I know that a drink cannot be taken into establishment that it wasn't purchased in.
Okay, that's exactly what I was wondering. Thank
And as
you.
it relates to underage drinking, I just want to make the point that that is up to within the confines of the service area of the liquor establishment, that they will do their due diligence as they would in any other sale. But when it goes out into a social district, yes, a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old can go out there and get the second drink or get the cup and fill it up and walk around. They would be caught and enforced as anything else would. Have we seen a prevalence of that? Not that my police officers have told me. And we have a community officer for the downtown. Obviously, for the special events, we have officers all over the streets. On a given Saturday or Friday, when we get the most activity, 5 until 11, I have security personnel, event personnel walking, and they have not reported that. Not to say that it's not happening, but I have not gotten any onslaught of reports of those kind of infractions.
I got a few more questions here from folks participating. Charlene Taylor asks, how, if any way, has the development of social districts affected the not so privileged communities? And I guess you can speak to Muskegon, not everywhere, but.
Affected in what way?
It doesn't say. Charlene, you want to unmute?
You want, yeah,
talk
you
a little
want
more?
to have a little dialogue here. What's the?
I asked that question basically because I work with a couple of people that are from Muskegon, and they talked about the development and all of the new buildings and projects going on in Muskegon, and they talked about how the underprivileged communities have been basically boxed off from all of the new growth going on and kind of squeezed in one little section while all of this is going on around them. So you got this one community of poverty, and all the land is being taken to develop all these new things going on, new buildings and things going on around them. And so they expressed how it's affecting families who don't have money in a negative way. So that's what made me ask this question. It's like you're tearing everything down around us, and pretty soon, where are we gonna go?
You're talking about gentrification issues. Those are
Yes,
probably
yeah.
more residential issues.
yeah,
That's a whole different Zoom and a whole different discussion. We are addressing those. We are aware of those. Obviously, as cities like Detroit and Grand Rapids especially are, as it relates to affordable housing.
mhm,
We have had a historic division of our community as it relates to people of color, marginalized communities not feeling comfortable in downtown when we had the Muskegon Mall.
Yep.
And enforcement of suspicious persons was usually a young African-American walking down the mall. I saw that on the scanner. I worked down here for years. I understand what that meant and how that was perceived. And why there is a reluctance of certain populations in Muskegon to embrace our downtown. But I am finding with new generations coming up that some of the very unfortunate histories that we've all lived through.
Right.
Being looked at differently, and we have issues. We do not have enough Black-owned businesses or Hispanic-owned businesses downtown, but
Mhm.
something that you're going to find across the state of Michigan. We are aware of it,
Sure.
diversity of what we're trying to do here as our economy is pumping in. The amount of capital into this area is very much a issue on our public policy and our minds of community leadership and those that are setting public policy. But the common area, whether you drink or not, any of the entertainment there, going to the farmer's market is all free and is open to everybody. And I am seeing more over the last 5 years that I have been in downtown management in Muskegon, a greater diversification of the populations that are coming and enjoying the area. Is it
Okay.
where we want it to be? Nowhere near. But hopefully it's moving in the right direction. And we are very much aware of the issues that you're hearing, Charlene. Jill, you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I just wanted to hear your perspective on it because
Yeah,
I'm not from Muskegon.
Yeah,
So, but one thing you said though is it is happening everywhere, so I just started learning a lot about Muskegon through my contacts with my friends from Muskegon.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll echo Dave's view on that. I've been in Muskegon since '98, and it's changed a lot. It very, very segregated when I first moved here. I will tell you, I totally agree with Dave. You're seeing much more diversity in the downtown area than ever before. It makes me feel good. It really does. I think we're moving in the right direction and we're encouraging that.
I think that's good. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
We have a
great.
Thank you
lot of
very
work
much.
to do, Charlene.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do, don't we?
We do.
Yep.
Thank you.
One more question as well. Vicki Loveland asked, do alcohol sales still start at noon on Sunday? If so, how is it social district allowed to open at 11?
You cannot take a social district drink or get a social district drink unless somebody is able to sell it to you. So if there's a regulatory issue on any of our establishments that are in it as to a time, and yes, that would be 12, I believe, on Sundays. You could not take a social district drink out until 12 o'clock.
Mhm. And just an FYI on that, you have to,
On Sundays.
when you go in the establishment, you actually have to ask for the social, you have to tell them you want that specific glass. Otherwise, they're just going to give you a bar glass, just
And
so
that
you
bar glass can't go outside of their service area
Right.
of their
Right.
establishment.
Right.
Yeah, I think
And
it's
they don't want
important
to
to
give
note too
you
that they can't.
one to drink in their establishment because there's an added extra cost to that for them to get that sticker from the city.
Right.
One last question, also from Jordan Ball. I'm from Bay County, and as you said, our culture is very similar. With that in mind, how can we teach our youth that underage drinking is dangerous? And also, is there any consideration regarding mixing marijuana and alcohol before allowing them to both be within the social district? It's like kind of a
I think
two-part.
the second item needs to be dealt with on a statewide basis, regulatory wise, both from that agency that regulates cannabis and from the Liquor Control Commission. I personally do not want to see any provisionaries, recreational or medical in my social district. I don't think that is a good, healthy mix. It doesn't send the right signal. And right now, there are no plans to do so, even though there were a potential of that being done. But Jill, you're still on the planning commission, aren't you, Jill? You get to deal with some of those issues on a regulatory issue as it relates to land use in our city.
Oh, Lord. Yes.
Yes.
Every
It's coming.
meeting. Yes.
From that standpoint, I think we do need to take a serious look at that on a statewide level between those two regulatory agencies. And obviously this organization is the great one to be an advocate for good public policy as it relates to that issue. As it goes to underage drinking, Ally is a group here that is a coalition of the prevention community, of public health, of establishments, of distributors, and of community stakeholders, law enforcement. I've spoken to them on the social district. We have had conversations around that. They have a very, I think, aggressive with the high schools and middle schools in our county program to combat, and also substance abuse, alcohol abuse as it relates to our community college and Baker College of Muskegon. So those programs are there. We need to bolster them. But I don't think the social district is having any effect that we can tell to this point that has surfaced as it relates to underage drinking because the district is now in operation.
Okay, and one last question. We saw the list there that I brought up and you talked about it. If there were a prevention group wanted to talk to somebody about the social districts, maybe in their county or in their city, would it be, you'd go right to the municipality, right? And talk to them?
Correct.
Not like, I mean,
They
you
are,
got
first
chambers
off,
of
they are the
commerce and
ones that
individual bars.
originated it. So, yep. And someone within that organization, it could be outside of the city's employment. It could be with an agency that runs their DDA, or they have hired somebody to run their social district, or they're somebody within their staff runs it. Then you drill down to figure out who actually is got day-to-day operational knowledge of it in their particular community.
Okay. That's great. I don't see any more questions in the chat. If anybody wants to unmute and ask Dave anything else?
I just want to say that as a preventionist working with youth in Kalamazoo County for 21 plus years, the social districts in Kalamazoo and the increase in providers, liquor providers and things of that nature has definitely challenged us as preventionists in educating the youth in our community of the dangers of alcohol and drugs, because it's so easily accessible. So I just want to make that statement, because it really makes our job harder. Because on one hand, we're saying don't use, and on the other hand, we're putting it in their face.
Mhm.
So it's a real challenge for us as far as educators trying to get them to understand when they see all these adults and everybody around them doing it in social environments, and they can't wait till they turn of age, and most of them don't wait. You know, so I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
All right, understandable. So for Dave, like I said, I really appreciate the information, a bit, the backgrounder on how the social district public act came to be was really helpful. And we appreciate your participation here today, and especially the view of Lake Michigan, what I'm assuming is behind you. Was nice on a very dreary
our
day.
spearhead right there. That's the Muskegon Lighthouse. It's our welcome mat to folks coming in from the west.
All right, like I said, we thank you, and if you can stick around, we're going to have kind of a panel discussion with some additional folks in the second part, but it's about 10:30 now. Lisa, Jill, John, what I plan on doing is just I was on a Zoom meeting yesterday from 9 to 1 with 1 5-minute break. So I realized we all have jobs and stuff to do. So from 10:30 to 10:45, take a 15-minute break, answer some emails. You know, the people have been popping in your office with like this in your head. See what they've got going on. We're going to get back with talk about some of our Preventions of the Year awards. And then we'll get right into the panel discussion at 10:45. So again, Dave, thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it. I like learning a little about Muskegon too. I've been there a few times and really enjoyed myself. I mean, we're beach people, so
If you haven't been to Muskegon in the last 5 years, we like to say you haven't been to Muskegon. So things are changing here dramatically and quickly. Hopefully for the good.
That's great. All right, so we'll stay on 15 minutes, a little break. We'll be back at 10:45 and continue with the Burning Issues Conference with our panel discussion of prevention.
Jill? Do you
Yes.
have my cell phone?
I don't know if I do. What
Let's
do you-
just talk a little bit before we get going privately, if we could.
Okay, all right.
I'll
Email it to me.
go just 215-8827. 215-8827.
Okay, I hope nobody else wrote that down. All right,
I don't care. I mean, it's on my business card. I mean, how much?
all right, okay.
Pretty transparent. 215-8827. See
I
y'all.
got it.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Okay, folks, it's 10:45. Welcome back to the conference. Hope you all got a lot done. I was frantically returning phone calls and checking emails and sending things out. So again, we appreciate your time and everyone's participation. Like I said, the 11 o'clock hour will bring kind of more of a full panel discussion with some folks we have lined up. They also have some experience with social distancing laws and can give a different perspective, unique perspective, as well as Dave. Like I said, I appreciate the discussion, the questions in the first part. We'll get going here, but the first, before we get going into our panel discussion, I'm obliged to give yet another plug to MPA. So for those of you like me, I remember there was a wonderful advertising campaign that membership has its privileges. So as a member of the MPA, one of the things we do every year is we like to kind of keep an eye on the pulse of prevention across Michigan, and then recognize both preventionists, people in the prevention field, different agencies, and occasionally legislators that have really advocated for or pushed forward the field of prevention in Michigan, and recognize them at our Burning Issues Conference with our Preventionists of the Year awards. So these awards are given out generally during our Burning Issues when we're not snowed out, like we were a few years ago. But what it is only members can nominate. So you have to be a member of the MPA to nominate somebody, and they don't have to be a member. We appreciate if they would be. We're not turning anybody away, but they don't have to be. But members can nominate somebody in the field of prevention who they think has done outstanding work for this year. Now, in the past year and a half with the pandemic, there has been some crazy shifting and reworking of all kinds of prevention activities. And as we all gotten used to Zoom and seeing people on computer screens, the field of prevention has shifted well. Talking with PIHPs in the state and other prevention organizations, I think we've all done a really fantastic job. And we have a nominee and a recipient of this year's Prevention of the Year award that we think has done a fantastic job of navigating not only the pandemic, but also keeping the community and prevention in the forefront of his agency's efforts. So I'd like to welcome John Cronick, who was the member that nominated our Preventionists of the Year for 2021. Give a little introduction, and we will go from there. So John, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Marcel Arbuckle Sr., are you on yet back? Hate to do this whole thing and not have you present.
Yes, I am here. What?
Okay, all right. Marcel and I go back a ways. A number of years ago, I had a chance to be the co-chair of MPA, and I asked Marcel if he would co-chair with me, and he graciously agreed. And I learned quite a bit about this gentleman, and very impressed with him. After finishing a career at Ford Motor Company, he listened to his heart and set up the Center for Urban Youth and Family Development. His work is filled with compassion as well as passion. He has a positive attitude. When there are issues that come up, it's Marcel who says, then what do we need to do to get past this? Or how do we get past this? It's not like, oh my gosh, we're stymied now. He's always got that optimistic outlook, and he's a problem solver, a can-doer. His wisdom, he knows how to look for opportunities, right? And when things are happening, he's there, he's with you, he's supportive. And yet he's also holds you accountable. So it's a really tricky balance there to be supporting somebody, encouraging them along, and holding them accountable. But that's what it takes to help people succeed. His kindness is evident, and he's a visionary. When you look at the Center for Urban Youth and Family Development and look at what they do, it's a whole lifestyle approach, a whole person approach. Marcel, I've considered it an honor to work with you, and it's my pleasure to announce that Marcel Arbuckle is our Preventionist of the Year for 2021.
Woo. I'm truly, truly shocked.
I'd like to add, Marcel, that we all loved keeping the secret from you, by the way. We all relished it and had just a great past month.
Oh my goodness. I was even recommending. Oh, I am really taken aback. Thank you so much. I really sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I am, thank you. I'm a little welling up here. I just, I toil in the vineyard and do my thing, So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
And I just forgot to mention humility. Oh my gosh.
Wow. This is very, very, very flattering. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You deserve it. You're our mentor. My mentor anyway. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I was reading some of the issues in the chat, and Angela, who we all nearly dearly love, I can't believe he's at a loss for words.
You got me this time, guys. You got it.
Yep. Yeah, well, like I said, what you do with CYFD, I think is fantastic. And listening to you kind of talk about what your life has been like the past month and what you're working on, I think it's a perfect example of why you've been nominated and why you deserve a President of the Year. Like, I know the organizations, LAHC comes to mind in terms of doing a turkey drive that's really beneficial to the community, but it's more than prevention, as John was saying, more than just kind of working on issues to get people to, stop using drugs and not start smoking and reduce underage drinking, but you're looking at things that the community needs. And I think during COVID, especially with the community support you had set up there for the pandemic too, it was really great to see. And like I said, there's a lot of people do a lot of work, but we here at MPA got to see what you're doing up close and personal through your DFC coalition, through CYFD, your agency. Like I said, we can't think you deserve it more. We really appreciate you not only being a executive team member with us, but also our partnership. So I work in Detroit and have done, I can't even count how many things we've done together, Marcel, in terms of take backs and forum trips, and we help each other with our DFC grants, and we've been a partner for a long time. And like I said, I think you do a fantastic job. I'm more than happy to award this. And also wanted to say that our nominee from last year, Mike Tobias with McCrud, the Michigan Coalition for Reducing Underage Drinking, myself, when we get together in person, we'll be able to give you a nice plaque you can put up there in that office, and show everyone, like I said, that you are 2021 Prevention of the Year from the MPA. Congratulations and all the best going forward in the
Thank you
future.
so much. I appreciate it. I happen to be wearing my fraternity sweater today because it's our Founders Day for the organization. So I'm just I'm wearing this, and it just is. It's really very, very moving to receive this award. Thank you on behalf of myself and my family, and the entire agency, and all of the people that we work with, and in behalf of our community. So thank you so much, Detroit's West Side.
All right, so like I said, we appreciate it. Now we will move on to our panel discussion. We've got two folks on the panel in addition to Dave, who you met this morning. We still have to be on. Barry Schmidt is the substance abuse prevention consultant and project director with the Neighborhood Resource Center, and he also works as the project coordinator for the Bay County Prevention Network. Barry has worked on health and quality of life issues for the past 30 years. He's done a lot of work in the prevention field as chair of McCrud in 2019. We're really excited to have him on this panel talking about social districts. Like I said, he is up in Bay County and in Bay City. And in addition, you heard from her earlier, we also have Lisa Coleman. Lisa is I want to get this correct now, PDO Project Director and Department Prevention Specialist. That's a mouthful, Lisa. For the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Recovery Oriented Systems of Care, ORAS. For anybody that's in prevention, receives block grant funding in the state of Michigan, you probably know Lisa. She's been a tireless advocate for prevention, and she just got another person to help her out. So she's not a one-woman gang anymore. So we're really excited about that. So I'd like to welcome both Barry and Lisa, in addition to Dave, to what we think would be kind of a free-flowing panel discussion about social districts between the participants here, what's going on, what they see for the future, and the perspectives of somebody that working for a specific county, Bay County, that you saw on the list had social districts, as well as from Lisa at the state. We'll get going here and welcome them to the discussion. So thank you both for being here, and thank you, Dave, for staying on.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hi there. You want to kind of introduce, talk about your experience with the prevention field, and also a little bit about social districts as you see them up in Bay County and your experience with them.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, first of all, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk with you. It's kind of nice to talk with Lisa. Lisa and I go back a long ways working in the prevention field, so it's kind of a nice segue to the whole process. First and foremost, I've been involved in the prevention field since about 1989. I got one of the first CPSs there was. I'm now a certified prevention consultant. I currently supervise two certified prevention specialists out of Saginaw County. As part of my outside of my position here, I do that as contracting work for them. As you said, I'm with the Michigan Coalition Against Underage Drinking. We've also been involved in regarding the prevention field with the coalition. Our coalition just celebrated 32 years. And we had the honor to this year, those that don't know Jill Warden was a tireless advocate for prevention. So we created the Jill Warden Founders Award as Jill had passed from cancer. So we were excited about that. And the nice thing about that is we had two of our representatives, or at least one of our representatives and one of his colleagues, aides that were there. So that was kind of cool, as well as some of the staff and mid-state health that work. But when I'm looking at prevention, I look at various different aspects of it. We have the primary prevention, the secondary prevention, and we do a lot with different things regarding underage drinking. We work with the court systems as well, doing programs with that. But let me get to the social districts. I think that's important. I don't know if you read my comments or not. We have 25 businesses that are in our social district area. That basically is 8 different areas, which means that we had about 4 or 5 different roads that were closed throughout the whole summertime, which made it a lot more difficult for people to get around different areas. So that is just one concern. Bay County has always been a large alcohol establishment area. As David talked about earlier, we're a lumbering town as well. We used to be known as Louisville Bourbon Street down on Midland Street, which is about 12 or 15 of them at that time. And what is intriguing about that is before social districts actually came into play, we actually started having a lot of problems on that Midland Street area, which we said was the Little Bourbon area. And we even had shootings, we had fights, with all sorts of things that were just going on. We're like, okay, we don't know if this social district is going to go. And then they decided to go with them. We were like, okay, well, let's make sure they're following the rules and all those different things that we'll talk about earlier. But then during the summertime, we worked with our local law enforcement, our city police station, and we went and did some compliance checks. And what we found is the 10 areas that we actually were, of the 25 that actually were social districts, that's the 10 we chose that they looked at. And they found that 5 of those 10 actually sold. So we had 50% of our social district areas selling to a minor. And what is even more disconcerting is that the minor gave them their ID and said, here you go, I'm 19 years old, and everybody knows an ID is this way if you're under 21. You know, they did with CVID, and then they served her. So that's a concern that we have regarding not just the social districts, just in general with the compliance checks. So that just gets you started on different things that are going on. And I will turn over to Lisa or Dave to kind of add into any of that regarding that. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, I did want to mention there's some folks saying that they have a little problem hearing you. I don't know if your mic might be muffled or you may need to lose closer. If you can do that, that'd be great. And then also John Cronick had his hand up. John?
I was just gonna mention that although we can hear you, if you get a little closer, it might be better.
All right. Well, I had a mic problem, so I had to switch mics. So it's a newer mic, so that's probably why. So can you hear me better now, John?
Yep, I think so.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for letting me know, people.
Okay, and to Lisa, just an introduction, kind of who you are, what you do, and kind of your experience with social districts as a representative of the state, I should say, before I give anyone any ideas. She's not running for office anytime soon.
I vote for her.
Yay! Thanks, everyone. Again, as Jeff mentioned, Lisa Coleman, I work with the Office of Recovery Oriented Systems of Care. A little history about me. I started in prevention in Michigan back in 1999. Oh my word. So instead of partying like it was 1999, I was like doing prevention like it was 1999. And worked at Catholic Charities in Flint, in Genesee, and Shiawassee counties, and did a lot of the programming that you all are doing today. Was there for about 8 years, and then the opportunity arose for a prevention coordinator position at what was then called the Substance Abuse Coordinating Agency. And so I was able to secure that position and worked there for about 8 years. And then back in 2014, the state transitioned the substance abuse coordinating agencies and combined them with the mental health agencies and reduced them to 10 regions. And so many of you are familiar with the 10 behavioral health regional entities that we have across Michigan, or the PIHPs. And so I worked with Region 10 PIHP for, I think it was maybe about 2 years in all, before the position prevention manager position at the state became available. And I was really excited to kind of tackle that role. And I really thought, ooh, I'm going to be able to make all of these changes. And then I got the position at the state and I realized, oh, this is why things happen the way that they happen. So I really, truly enjoy working for this state. It's been very educational and it has helped me transition from all my previous roles. The most thing that I think I'm proud of is that I have all of that background that really helps center me at the state. And hopefully I continue to hear the voice of, direct service workers, of regional entities, of community partners. Those are the voices that are really important to me as I do the work, state work for prevention. And so I'm really excited to be a part of today and just kind of talking a little bit about social districting and what does that mean for preventionists. I mean, I think that a lot, one of the questions that I got on the side as we were having the discussion earlier was, how will we fight big business as issues emerge in the future? So as preventionists, what's our role? What are we supposed to be doing? And I know that there's been, as Barry talked about, what they're doing in Bay County, and there's been many other counties that have partnered with their social districts to make sure that it's, thinking about first and foremost, is it recovery friendly? And then also, is it prevention friendly? And really thinking about what that might look like. And I know that there's been some campaigns that have happened. I know that we had one community in Mason County that worked with their city officials, from the get-go of really designing their social district and making sure that prevention had a voice and a say in it. And they had a campaign that they also did, just talking about, the responsibleness, I guess, of making sure that the social district is being responsible and following the rules and regulations that are put in place. And so I think there's just been a lot of activity around this specifically. I have a whole list of stuff that I put together and thought about based on the strategic prevention framework. I don't really know how much time I have, or if you want me to continue, or if we're just kind of moving on and allowing questions.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, if you got some things put together, I mean, hearing about social districts and the SPF and your thoughts on the state, I think it'd be great. And we have plenty of time for questions. We kind of let this be a little bit longer because I know that not only want to hear from your perspective, but we also want to let people have a chance to question and get some answers later on. So yeah, feel free, go for it, man.
All right, sweet. So just some things, as I was preparing for this panel presentation, just thinking through as preventionists, what's our role and our job. And really in Michigan since, excuse me, since 2007, we have upheld the strategic prevention framework as the key framework for doing science-based prevention. And so thinking that through, there's the 5 steps: assessment, capacity, planning, implementation, and evaluation. And in all of the steps, thinking about, sustainability, are the efforts that we're putting into place going to sustain the outcomes that we want? And then secondly, thinking about cultural competence and what that looks like. And today, we talk a lot about equity and diversity and inclusion, and making sure that at each step of the, each step of the strategic framework that we're taking cultures into consideration. So when I think about social districts, the first thing I think about as preventionists is, right, we want to look at the data and really think about what does that assessment look like? The consumption data, is there an increase in public intoxication? What populations are utilizing the social districts, so we know who our population of focus may be. Are there public safety incidents or concerns that we need to consider? Thinking about traffic fatalities, thinking about impaired driving or operating while intoxicated, looking at rates of binge drinking or heavy drinking. Is it being impacted by the social district? Certainly, rates of alcohol abuse in general. And then, as we've already mentioned here too, just underage drinking. What does that look like? What does that picture look like? Are there sales to minors? So Barry, talked about how they did compliance checks within their social districts. And, making sure, are we looking at that data to tell us the picture? Because we may make some, honestly, even this morning's conversation helped me to have a broader perspective of social districts. Initially when I thought about them, I just, through this kind of lens of prevention and even recovery, was like, absolutely not. This seems like a horrible idea. But again, is it, there's ways that we can work with our social districts and make sure that it's safe and that people are being responsible. And so even this morning's conversation helped me to realize I really need to look at the data and not just my assumptions or what I think that's going to happen. And so we want to continue to track that as time goes on. John brought up the question earlier about, is there anybody kind of tracking this data and looking at the impacts of social districts? And I certainly think as a preventionist, that's part of our roles. I think coalitions can really make sure that that's on their radar to continue to look at. Thinking about capacity issues, who's involved with our prevention efforts with the social districts. We've learned this morning that they're created through local government agencies. And so we really want to make sure that we're partnering with our cities and with our law enforcement, with our developmental downtown authorities, because they're the ones that are at the forefront of really having this social district in place. And we want to make sure that we're partnering with them. I think also about, just current procedures that we have. They talked about festivals, and we already have some defined things that we do if we know that there's going to be festivals within our communities. And so taking what we've learned from those procedures and applying them to social districts and making sure that, we're doing maybe some of the beverage server trainings, that we're training around what are the laws and rules of the social districts. How can we help partner with signage even? I know that there's places that have included, prevention messages on their signage. So not only just giving those signs that have boundaries, but what is our what are some prevention messages that we might include in some of those signage too. That can include looking at window clings for the establishments, you know, in those social district areas. You know, are there signs, other signs that we can put up? But really thinking through how can we build the capacity for prevention messages, if you will. Oops, sorry. So then just thinking about planning, obviously, you know, we think about strategic planning that we do. You know, many of us create either work plans or logic models or key activity timelines. Just want to make sure that even while you're thinking about how you're working with social districts, that that's still a part of what you want to have in place as a preventionist, that we want to have a plan in place based on, you know, our data and our capacity issues and needs. I think about some of the things that have happened in communities around community standards. So I know that when I worked in Genesee County, we worked with local law enforcement around liquor licensees, and we had several jurisdictions completed community standards. And so this could be something that is in addition to just the rules and the laws that are already in place around social districts. Are there any specific community standards that your community wants to put in place? And those, you know, you want to work with your governmental agencies and your law enforcement on those. And thinking about the liquor licensees, you know, are there policies that they need to update? You know, thinking as preventionists, can we partner with our liquor licensing and making sure that they have updated policies that address the laws and rules and of the social district? And of course, enforcement, you know, as we heard, it sounds like the enforcement is really kind of self-enforced, or, you know, enforced by those who are actually in the social districts. And so making sure that, you know, are there messages that we can get out there, but making sure that there's enforcement of those rules and laws and regulations around the social districts. And then prepare for any issues that may arise. I mean, think it through, like, you know, what have we seen at, you know, I'm just thinking about like festivals and other areas where they've been allowed to consume alcohol in public areas. What are some issues that arose from that? And are there things that we can then prepare ourselves in the event that this happens? Let's make sure that we have something in place, a plan that we're going to actually follow. And just thinking about implementation, you know, thinking about, I kind of mentioned this, but server training, certainly signage, you know, we've seen the social district boundary signage, making sure that that's evident and that people understand where you can and cannot use, maybe in using those signs for prevention messages, you know, certainly defining drink responsibly. You know, we hear that a lot, you know, drink responsibly, but what does that mean? You know, making sure that people are counting their drinks. As preventionists, we know that there's, you know, limits to what people should be drinking, and making sure that they understand what that is. And it's certainly addressing any underage drinking issues that could potentially happen in those communities. And then, you know, obviously enacting the community standards or policies that may be put in place. And certainly we want to continue to evaluate, you know, not only thinking about the process, you know, evaluation of the process, but also outcome evaluation and what impacts have we seen based on any strategies that we might put in place, as well as, you know, continuing to look at the data that I mentioned earlier. And we certainly want to choose data indicators to determine, you know, if any of our strategies that we're putting in place have been impactful. So those are just some of the thoughts that I had. I know that it was kind of a lot, but, you know, thinking about our role as preventionists, it's like, you know, we have our role, we have the things that we've done and that we've been successful at, and how can we then apply those to the social districts, and making sure that we're in the conversation from the beginning, I think is very helpful. And it sounds like even from the city of Muskegon, how they talked about it, that, you know, their preventionists were there at the beginning and were able to have that conversation and be a part of the planning for these social districts, which I think is crucial in ensuring that alcohol is consumed responsibly and that underage drinking isn't occurring.
Thanks. We have a question, and said either for you, Lisa or Barry. I don't know how much you know about MLCC. How often are the liquor laws updated? This is from Angela Wilson at AWS. Do the updates occur as a result of an incident that perhaps made the media, which caused an update? Are they reviewed? What is that process for kind of liquor legislation in the state of Michigan? Do you have any ideas
So that's
about
all
that?
legislative, isn't it? That has to be done. The Liquor Control Commission more does the rules, the rulemaking aspect of it. The laws themselves are designed by the legislators based upon what has been determined as a concern from their constituents. I think that's how I would answer that one. Data can be something. So as preventionists, we could talk about some data, and maybe we wanted some sort of change in liquor law in some way. We then could advocate, not lobby, advocate for information to get to our representatives and get a coalition of individuals together to advocate for that. And that would be how things basically change. That's how social district changed, is that they had different organizations that advocated for those areas. And because they advocated for it, that's why they changed. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but I believe that's kind of the process.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any, I mean, as far as how often our liquor law is updated, I mean, there's no like timeline for that, but it's really based on really what Barry said. So the legislators, if they hear of something, or, I mean, even like, we think about like the 4 a.m. law or bill that's been introduced a couple of different times. And so really it's dependent on what the communities are saying in conversations that they're having with their legislators, and then they can create the laws. And then as Barry said, the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, or MLCC, they're responsible for the administrative rules. So really thinking about, okay, these are the laws that are in place, and are there any rules that we need to clarify or put in place for us as a state to manage and or enforce or oversee any of the laws that are put in place. And then those administrative rules are across the board. So I mean, it can be for liquor licenses, but even in, it can be for liquor licenses. They have the administrative rules for liquor licenses. They have administrative rules for, we were talking about earlier, the marijuana laws. So yeah. So Dave, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Let me just say, as it relates to my experience with the Liquor Control Commission through our establishments here in downtown Muskegon, is that they are very aggressive in this particular LCC board of commissioners are very aggressive in enforcing the liquor laws and regulations of the state of Michigan. As it relates to social districts, the LCC has control of the alcohol within the establishment's service area. Those service areas have been, as I mentioned, expanded into sidewalks, next door parking lots, streets when they've been shut down. But most of that has been temporary. A lot of those temporary expansions of that service area where they can serve drinks has been retracted back to pre-COVID places or areas. But outside of that, the LCC has had a hands-off policy as it relates to the open receptacles of the social district common areas. And that is a law enforcement municipality issue that they've allowed to be handled on a local basis.
Yep, and I can also, I'm going to give another MPA member plug here. For any of you interested in kind of getting into the MLCC and testimony and what bills are currently up in the legislature, the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking, and Mike Tobias, a former Preventionist of the Year, does a really fantastic job with his group at CRUD, kind of talking about these issues of liquor control and liquor laws, and 4 a.m. licensing and social districting. It's a really great organization, and it's statewide. And Mike gives some really great talks. When you ask him about kind of what's going on that preventionists need to be concerned about in terms of alcohol policy in the state of Michigan, Mike Tobias, again with McCrud, is a fantastic resource. He knows what's going on. He's very familiar. He's gotten some of our youth to testify at the MLCC hearings. He's always harping on me to go up there and tell legislators what we think we need here in Detroit. So if you're interested, look at the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking, called McCrud, and Mike Tobias. They're a great resource for preventionists if you're looking into alcohol and liquor and policies for what's going on in the state of Michigan. And they're part of the prevention network in Lansing.
Thank you, Jeff. I have a few things to add to Lisa's very long list of things that are out there. You did a great job on that. Appreciate that. I think working with the policymakers from the local level is really important. Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, can you maybe turn up your volume on your computer or something?
Yeah, I got problems here. I don't know what's going on.
Or we
I've
can
never had
switch
that.
computers really quick, Barry, if you guys can hear me clearly.
Yep,
Katie?
can hear you,
All
George.
right,
We can switch spots.
We'll do it together. 1 second.
Switch these.
Just stay there. You can stay behind.
Are you sure?
All right. Sorry
Thank you,
about that,
Katie.
everybody.
Don't mean to displace you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Yes.
All right, good. Usually it's the microphone that works. Working with the policymakers is an important aspect of it. I think Lisa talked about that, but I can't say that enough because they're the ones that are going to design everything. So as you just talked about earlier, being involved in that aspect of it. I think the second one, also working with the establishment, you talked a little bit about server training, but I think we can go a little bit further than that. I think we can help them with giving the information about why this is important to check IDs, as well as looking at their policies, giving them maybe some procedures to help them. It's interesting you talked about the common standards, because I actually had it on my plane to talk about recommendations that we could provide to them. So it's kind of neat that we kind of thought the same kind of thing. Ensuring the regulations actually are being followed. I don't know if you're aware of mystery shopping or not. Mystery shopping would be something basically you'd send some individuals in there, make sure that they're checking ID, they're following through on all the regulation components. That would be another aspect that I would recommend as well as making sure that scanning the environment. I mean, you don't have to do to scan the environment. You can see very quickly whether or not they have the signage, whether or not people are having problems. I mean, that can be something you can see very quickly, especially if you go in a time when, especially later in the evening, towards the end of the night, you can see whether there's any concerns there. And it's not that we're going to cite them or anything, but we could go to the business and say, hey, these are just some concerns we have to help them, to work with them. Because as you know, and I think everybody would agree, we're not prohibitionists, but we want to make sure that policy is not only in there, but it's also enforced. And sometimes it has to be enforced necessarily from the city, but it can be enforced individually from the different establishments. And I think collecting data, I think Lisa talked about that, but I think we go even a step further is actually asking the businesses and neighbors around that area what kind of things they're seeing, if there's any problems, concerns that they might have, if there's any noise ordinance, noise issues, things like that. So those are some things that I would just wanted to add to that when we're looking at that aspect of it. So just want to make sure you got those.
I like that too, Barry, especially with, maybe even doing some focus groups with some of the establishments to find out what's happening and what's going on. Because we definitely also want to celebrate the successes. I mean, those who are being compliant and, it's increasing their business, it's increasing the income of the, downtown area and the businesses. Those are all positive things that are happening. And so we definitely want to celebrate when they're being successful and when they're following the rules because that is, that's helpful, because then as preventionists, we're not seeing all of the other problems and implications, or no problems that might come with, excessive drinking.
And one establishment might have a success, another one's gonna have too. So that's a good idea to be able to share that information within that system of the social districts as well, which may also be utilized throughout the whole state, because this is something that's sunsetted, but I know there has been legislation in the past looked at not getting rid of that sunset. So I think we need to be really prepared to that this is going to happen. And we use a reward and remind program where basically reward people that aren't selling, and then those that are selling, we remind them, hey, we want to make sure. And the same thing goes with social districts following the rules. The same way, reward them for those that are following the rules as well, and remind those that aren't. And once again, we're not trying to be punitive. It's just designed to make sure that the environment is conducive to, number one, not allowing underage drinking, but also not allowing excessive drinking, because we know in Michigan, unfortunately, that happens too often. So those are just considerations to consider as well.
And Dave, you had your hand raised?
Yes, as a downtown manager, speaking just for myself, I would encourage anyone in my community that wants to come in and do spot checks on establishments or the operation of the social district. That would be very helpful in terms of us managing it. And as a educational point, obviously there are those kinds of things that the LCC does also, but we would encourage that. And also as it relates to co-messaging, I will be talking to Jill as it relates to what she does and the monies that she has in terms of how we can, yeah, it's on your list, I know. How we can, and I cooperate and coordinate with her and the public health department here in Muskegon County to put co-messaging out. And I've got, like I say, 50 boards out there, and we're willing to change the message up and help that out. So I'm looking to explore that. I learned something here this morning. Thanks.
And John, you had a question?
Mute. I was curious, as have the insurance companies weighed in on this, and particularly if my loved one goes down to Billy Bob's and drinks too much and gets in a car crash, I can take legal action against the establishment for over-serving. How does this dynamic play in when someone's not in any one given establishment? What happens to the liability issues? Where do they come in, and have the insurance companies weighed in on this themselves?
I'll just pick that up. I do know that liability was one of the issues early on pre-COVID that really got us into a position of not getting an enabling legislation through the Michigan legislature. Where that went to in terms of each establishment, that is something that I have not heard that they've had any issues with their particular carriers for dram shop laws and liability insurance. It is something that if there is the tragic overserved drunk driver fatality or injury accident, that goes to court, and the attorneys are going to have to do the fact finding and presenting to either a judge or a jury those facts. And I would guess that where that particular individual was at during the course of the hours prior to that accident will come into play, whether they were in the social district or whether they had gotten their six-pack down at the corner store. All of that goes into, I'm sure, how they will address it from a legal standpoint, but I really have not heard of any problems with the issue from a private insurance standpoint. And I know from a risk management standpoint, our risk manager, our city attorney, and our police chief are comfortable of the city's coverage and its general liabilities policy for whatever issues that we may be liable for.
Thank you.
Hi, Barry, I think, and maybe Dave might be better able to answer this question, but I'm looking, this is Lisa Horvath, I'm looking for a little more clarity on the social district place. One of our communities has 3 establishments as part of their social district that are very, very close to each other, but their district expands down, you know, on either side where there are no establishments that are involved. And I'm just wondering if that's kind of a normal thing or an okay thing. One side goes right down to where the ice cream parlors are in the park, you know, and so I'm a little concerned about that.
In Muskegon, we launched with probably 9 establishments in September of 2020. We expanded that up to 18 as we extended that in May or so of 2021. Prior to that, we put our district signs, we compressed them in just to the areas of the 9. So in Lakeside, where I only have 2 establishments, and we have way down the street, 3, possibly 2 more, we have defined our boundaries to those areas that make sense. If going down a street, there is no, and it's in the district, there is no reason for a person to walk a drink down there. We put our boundaries at the point that a common person would be going between establishments, going to the common areas. So all of my gray map, if you remember, there's a gray map, and then with the red in it, which is where the common areas are at, we do not open up the entire district to drinks. We only open up those that, and that's our policy here. That's how I've managed it. How others are doing it, I can't say, but we are very much aware of, I do not want, especially in a mixed use downtown where we have residential streets and commercial streets that are sort of businesses and residents and mixed use buildings on top of each other, that I don't want to have drinks walking down past residential areas where they do not need to be. So even though they may be in the social district, they are not part of the common area. And that common area was defined as to who the establishments were at any given time.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's kind of my concern with this is because, like I said, it goes down beyond, there's no establishments down that way that sell alcohol at all. So the social district expands down where there's a couple of ice cream parlors and houses and apartments and no.
Have a conversation with your city officials and whoever specifically is managing that. And I think that can be negotiated.
Thank you.
Okay, Angela Wilson, you have your hand raised? Angela.
Hey, Jeff. For point of clarity, with the social district, what he just mentioned, is it that before they become, or a retailer becomes in part of a social district, is this something that has to be specified, you know, where their zones are, or this is something that is should be automatically assumed for point of clarity, because I didn't understand
It's
or I
not
missed
automatically assumed. The
Okay.
district boundaries are established in any establishment or are created. Any establishment who has I think it's Class C license, that would be liquor by the glass within the restaurant or bar or tavern or brewery or distillery, or private social clubs can also be a part of that. Anyone within those classifications would then have to apply to the municipality to get a permit to be participants in that district. That has to be approved by resolution of the city, village, or township boards. And then that approval, recommended approval, then goes on to the LCC. If somebody has, and it has happened down in our social district, we have had a very major player in our district who have had LCC violation issues that have not yet been resolved have a social district permit pending for a year. So it's not automatic. If you are in trouble because if you have been a bad actor in the past, you are not granted it either at the local level or at the state level. There can be a roadblock of that. And as I mentioned in my presentation, if there's an establishment or a district that becomes a public health, public safety, public nuisance, that can be petitioned to the board that established them, the commission, the council, the township board, whatever. And then a public hearing would have to be held as to whether that would be asked to be revoked at the state level. And I would imagine that I've not seen it yet. It's not happened in my community, but that law, that provision is in Public Act 124.
Thank you. I have one other question. And anybody can answer this. How do cigar bars fit into the social district of things? Because, you know, they sell liquor, but they also are established as, you know, a place where you can, you know, it's okay to smoke inside. So are liquor license like holders cigar bars part of this social district, can be part of a social district setting or whatever? I mean, what would that look like?
Yes, that license probably would qualify them to be part of the social district, but we do not have a cigar bar in our district, so I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
That probably is the case. And let me mention, I mentioned private clubs, Eagles, rec clubs, Vikings, other social clubs, yacht clubs. If they are within the social district, I have a couple of them. No one has signed up for it yet. I've got three, two of them up in Lakeside and one downtown, but they are able to become part of the social district, but you cannot go into their establishments and buy a drink if you're not a member. That's part of their license. So anyone from the Eagles, if they wanted to become part of it downtown, could get a social district drink from the Eagles, a member, as they could any drink by the glass in their establishment, and then take it out into the common areas. But no one else can do that, and you can't take anybody else's social district cup into the private club. So those are out there, they are available, but they have not been used in my community.
Thank you.
I have a question on distance limits. Are there any distance limits written in the law? And I'm speaking of like 1,000 feet from schools, churches, daycare centers, that type of thing.
The law does not address that that I'm aware of. That would be limitations to the individual establishments as they get their Class C license. But a good question, and I'm because we have a park, Hackley Park, that is surrounded by two churches directly across the street and a third one down the way. And when they, because of that 1,000-foot rule, when we have a special event license, they have to sign off to that. They have to approve that special event license within the park. That is a very good point.
Barry, I want to ask specifically, I've been to Festival City up there in Bay City before a lot. How does your social districts work with your kind of like, I mean, it seems like every weekend. I've been up there for a lot of different, how do they work together in terms of the issue that Dave discussed earlier in terms of beer tents and social districting, and how have you worked with that up there by you?
Well, we have eight different areas currently that actually have social districts, and we haven't had the festival issue with the beer tents yet because of COVID.
Yeah.
So we'll see when that happens, because one of these social districts is right near Winona Park, which is where our big fireworks and major festivals go, and there's always a beer tent there. So we haven't had that yet because of COVID, but I can see that being a concern. On that's that Center Avenue. There's like 4, 5, 6 bars right there and restaurant type things. Then you go around the corner, there's even more. So, those 8 different areas, each of those areas is unique. And like I said earlier, it closed the streets. So we haven't had the issues with the tents yet, but I can see that being a concern down the road here. And that's something we'll have to work with the city with to make sure that there's appropriate processes like Dave talked about to make sure that they're following the compliance and the laws and things like that. Did he answer your question enough, Jeff? Basically, like I said, there is nothing yet, but I can see it coming.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, like I said, I just thought of it because, like I said, I've been up there for the fireworks. I've been up there for a few different friends that live up there. So it seemed like I said, there's a festival every weekend, it seems up there.
There is.
And it's great. Like I said, we've had a really good time, but you have so many of those districts. I was just wondering how that worked out, but yeah, obviously with COVID and the law just passing in 2020.
I think Tall Ships is coming, I think next year, I believe, or the following year, one of the two. So, and we work closely with them, making sure they have signage as well as provide ID scanners and things like that for those different businesses. What is ironic is that we had one of them that was it's a good story, by the way, that's considered a nonprofit. They do events for nonprofit almost every week in the summer. And they were one of the stores that actually, the establishments that sold. So we actually gave them an ID scanner to use. They're like, oh, this is easy. So now they don't have any issues with that. So that's a positive thing that happened regarding this situation. So,
yeah, like I said, it's great to see, like I said, not worry about punishing people. We just want to fix the problem. So that's on the east side of Detroit, we do a lot of work. That's what we're interested in. We're not, going crazy over people. Obviously they shouldn't sell, but like, we're not looking to shut them down and take their liquor license, but like we want to make sure they don't sell to youth. And those ID scanners are great because like I said, the clerks do it's swipe and go, so it's fantastic.
Yep, exactly.
Raised hand, or Ms. Russell.
Yeah, I'm up in Bay City where Barry's at, and for the fireworks this year, they didn't have like the regular beer tent, but they did serve alcohol. Like in certain parts of Winona Park. And they did have a lot of extra security there that was monitoring going in and out of there because it's right by where those social districts are that Barry's talking about. And they were stopping people from going out of the social districts because you had to go out of that to get into the park, and they were not allowing it. My daughter was in the pageant and stuff down there, and they were very strict about that. So it was nice to see that they were enforcing it, were paying attention to that, because I was wondering what was going to happen. And I know law enforcement was very worried about it as well, because that was really the first festival that we had where they had those social districts. So from what I had seen, while I was down there all day, the 2 days, there didn't seem to be any big issues with it like we were worried we were going to have.
In Muskegon, we had the same thing with our Hackley Park, which is outside of the social district, but had nonprofit special event licenses within it. And we bolstered up the touch points between the park and the social district. We added standing there the entire time, enforcement of those provisions, and everyone complied well within the park and within the social district.
I saw an interesting comment, Simone, I'm picking a little bit, and this is something I think it's very important for preventionists across the state, no matter where you're at. Talked about working with her senator, the social district, the city, and the DDA to make sure that the beer tents are kept by families. So, Simone, can you talk a little about how kind of you develop those partnerships, how you work with those people, because it's really important. I would encourage everybody to get to know kind of the players involved in social districts and other alcohol regulations, and make sure you reach out to them and partner with them, because I know everyone wants the same thing. Talking to establishments and as well as law enforcement, everyone's looking for responsible drinking. So if you talk about how that developed at all, Simone, were you around for developing like your little cabal there? That's really great.
Our senator actually sits on our coalition and is is a great advocate. She has her children actually participate in the Taylor Public Schools. And she, our partnership is really with the city, the mayor, everyone. We always make sure that any celebration that's going on in Taylor, that the coalition is involved, right down to Telegraph Cruise. We have alcohol compliance signs where their tents are. We send letters out to local businesses to say that, you know, having kids in this area is a danger because of the cruise, because of alcohol. So we're constantly keeping that relationship going. And if there's something that we feel we need to discuss, then we just get hold of our senator, she's just amazing. You just have to build those relationships. You know, you have to keep those relationships going, but they can do so much for you. And guess what? It's free. So
That's great. Like I said, yeah,
it's important. So when we do our
it.
summer festival, which we did have a huge participation this year, which I was kind of nervous about for obvious reasons, the entertainment company sat at the table with us that was performing. The PR department sat at the table with us. Carl Zymek from the city sat with us. And we looked at where everything was going to be mapped to make sure that we had a good understanding that the beer tents would be kept away from our family areas. And every year we do the same thing. We bug them. So they're just used to that speed dial phone call. Here comes someone.
No, that's great. But it's like something that's very important to kind of find out, you know, where those flashpoints could be, and making sure you're working with people beforehand, so you don't have any issues.
Yeah, and then we use our coalition members to actually be there. So we not only, you know, are able to sit with city officials and figure out help and make sure that they follow through with everything. We also are able to have our coalition members there that are giving out information about our coalition and about, you know, giving information about substance use issues that we're having in the community. Because as we know, there are many of them. So it's a win-win for us.
That's great. I want to switch really quickly to a housekeeping issue. Thanks for posting in the chat. In your chat, Jill's posted the link to the evaluation tool. So to be eligible for the 3 McBAP CEUs, you need to complete the evaluation and you have to do it within 1 hour after the end of the event to complete. So that's a really key issue there. We are bound by McBAP rules when we're offering McBAP CEUs, and those are the rules for getting the CEUs. So the link is there. It's SurveyMonkey link. You can take that and then you'll be eligible for the 3 McBAP CEUs, but you got to do it within an hour of the end of our session. So see, John, got your hand raised?
Yes, Lisa, this one's more directed for you. We're hearing a lot of good things, reinforcement for people aren't getting hurt by doing this, but it's new to us. And we need to keep an eye on it. Is there any action being planned at the state to set up a study committee to follow up on this and see where problems may lay, or what ideal prevention activities would be around this? And as I say this, I'm not only talking about the alcohol social districts, but as Dave mentioned, he expects cannabis to be following in suit right along. So is there any plans at the state level to set up a team to look at this?
There are now. No, so currently we, quite honestly, currently it's not on our agenda at the state level to specifically look at social districts and what's happening around them. Certainly, I know that there's been a lot of buzz in the prevention community, as well as other areas of communities that have thought about this, and just being on this conversation today and hearing all of the feedback and all of the cool things that are happening. Certainly, I think it's something that at the state level, we would be interested in looking at. Specifically, I think about just our underage drinking. We have a strategic plan for underage drinking. So that's really where I think this might fit in, that maybe there's some more tracking or monitoring that we could be doing and should be doing around social districts.
Well, MPA is here. If we can be a partner with it.
Yeah. And for those of you interested too in the chat, Lisa just put a link to information about social districts that MLCC has put together. So use some good information there in terms of kind of the rules and regulations, I'm sure. But check that out when you're in the chat.
Lisa, Dave here from Muskegon. I would be a conduit between you and the MPA and the Michigan Downtowns Association, because I think our organization also would be interested in the topics and the research and all that's being discussed here today.
I would love that. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Lisa? Hello? You guys hear me?
We hear you, Marcel.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, this is a little bit off the beaten path, but along the same line of John's recommendation that we consider developing some type of a committee to look at this. Another issue that we want to probably start taking a look at are some of the new drugs that are hitting the streets that have not been rated or licensed or whatever. One in particular is Kratom. And we're seeing more and more establishments that are selling it. There's some establishments where people can go in and use it. And I think that we might want to consider investigating the impacts and how we're going to manage that issue. There was a presentation about it at the last CACA forum in Washington, and there's a lot of issues going on with that.
Yeah, so I know our state epidemiological's outcome work group that part of what we try to do is stay, what's happening in regards to, new trends in substance use and substances. And so that's something that we definitely have taken a look at through that group. As far as dissemination of information, we really utilize our PIHP network. And so we send out any updated information that we might have to our prevention coordinators at the PIHPs, and then ask them to disseminate that information more broadly through their provider network. So I think there's probably room to improve that communication system, but that's certainly what we have in place now. So if you're not receiving, I know I've sent out information around Kratom, and it certainly is something that we're keeping an eye on, especially like I mentioned through our epidemiological's outcome work group. But if you're not receiving information on topics that come from the state, certainly I'd love to have that feedback so that we could talk about, as a system, what is a good way to try to get information out there. We also don't utilize, I think, our website as well as we could. So we do have a Do Your Part website that has a lot of information. Currently, it's around underage drinking and prescription drugs and tobacco use. But I definitely want to add marijuana information there. And then maybe we could add new trends or up and coming substances of use or something like that. And that might be a go-to spot where if we have updated information, we could put it and people would know to go there to find it.
Okay, thanks. I guess it just came to mind as I'm thinking of the social sections, and with Barry saying that marijuana is going to follow. We've already got some establishments where people can go in and use Kratom and drink it, I think, as a tea and so forth. So I'm just, thinking along those lines of it becoming a public utilization product or something. I don't know, for lack of a better way to term it.
Yeah. All right, Lisa, you got some volunteers for your new work group in the chat. I'll make sure I get those to you too. A lot of people said they're interested in doing something on a committee about those issues in the future. And then also another question in the chat regarding, hey, Miriam, LHC is in too, Lisa. So you got some fans. The question regarding Kratom being able to be sold in Michigan. I don't think it was ever a ban from sale in the state of Michigan. I know it's being sold now. I give a few gripes to some people that I go to regularly. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone else knows anything about it, but I don't think it was ever banned from being sold. I know that there was talk about it. There might even be legislation developed, but I don't think it went anywhere. All right, so like I said, so I think it's able to be sold. I mean, there's talk in the federal level about doing some prohibitions, things like that. But nothing's been done so far. Want to remind people again, look in the chat for the links for the evaluation. Lisa's put it up there a couple times. And like I said, it has to be done within an hour. So I know we're all hungry and it's lunchtime almost. But take 5 minutes and get the eval done so you don't forget about it until after your lunch. McVap is, they're pretty serious about their credits and they want us to follow the rules, regulations, which we have to. Anything else in terms of social districts in their communities? Anything else final? Like I said, we appreciate all of our presenters here. Dave did a fantastic job and we appreciate all the information. Lisa and Barry for letting us know what's going on in basically you're literally just starting a work group, Lisa. You're just giving yourself more work because there are comments coming fast and furious for the chat. So I'll make sure I get those to Lisa and let her know, and I'll send it along your email addresses too that we got from registration. So if and when she gets something going and she needs your help, she will have that. Anybody else? John, Lisa, Jill, anything else for the conference?
Not for me, but thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Thanks,
really
everybody, for
appreciate
being
all
here.
the presenters. Yeah.
so much.
And again, the call for participation in MPA, because the MPA is only as strong as the members who step forward. And as you can see, every year, Burning Issues Conference, advocacy piece, and we could do more the more they come on board. So you're welcome.
Yep. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Again, thanks to our presenters. Congratulations to Marcel, Prevention of the Year. Everybody have a wonderful holiday season. Enjoy it and keep on preventing that prevention works in Michigan, and we're helping to strengthen it. So thank you very much for your attendance, everyone. Don't forget your evaluations. Get them done. Get those credits.
Hang on, I'm doing my evaluation.
I assume everyone who's still on board here is applying to be the next chairperson for MPA.
Yeah, not it.
I know Karen's looking pretty intent there. I think she's online.
There you go.
I'm just saving our chat. And like I said, I had it set up to auto record. I don't know why it didn't, but probably because I'm terrible with technology. But we got the meat and potatoes of it anyways.
Good for you.
I'm going to stop the recording.
That was really great.